Every year has a few disasters mixed in with the masterpieces, and 2017 wasn't any different. While the year produced some truly great films, it also had its fair share of clunkers, from malformed horror movies and badly made biopics to overbearing blockbusters that might just give you a migraine. Here are the worst movies of 2017. The Snowman. On paper, The Snowman should have been awesome. It's headlined by several formidable stars and was directed by Thomas Alfredson, director of well-received films like Let the Right One In and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But despite all that talent, the film is a bloody mess. Based on the novel by Joe Nesbo, The Snowman follows an alcoholic detective who chases a psycho with a thing for building snowmen. Unfortunately, the thrills are outdone by a slew of messy subplots, over-the-top music, subpar performances, and a bunch of supposedly freaky frosties that really aren't that frightening. The Bye-Bye Man. With movies like Split, Get Out, and It Comes at Night, 2017 was a pretty solid year for horror. But on the flip side, we also got The Bye-Bye Man.
The Bye-Bye Man.
Written by Jonathan Penner and directed by Stacy Title, this January flight flick has been described as one of the emptiest, nonsensical haunted thrillers ever to fail genre audiences. And for good reason. As a movie, it fails on every level imaginable, from the acting to the directing. And worst of all, the bad guy's mythology doesn't actually make any sense. What's up with the coins? What's up with the train? What's up with the CGI mess of a hellhound? So yeah, don't say it, don't think it.
Don't say it, don't think it. Don't say it, don't think it. Don't say it, don't think it.
And definitely don't watch it. Baywatch. Based on the hit TV show starring David Hasselhoff and Pamela Anderson, Baywatch looked pretty good on paper. It stars Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron as super shredded lifeguards who spend their days saving lives, cracking jokes, and fighting crime. But after Baywatch hit theaters in May 2017, critics immediately slammed the movie for being, well, bad. So what's up with the hate? Maybe it's because the movie focused a little too much on jokes involving body parts and fluids. It's not hard to see why critics didn't feel the need to save this movie from drowning at the box office. Underworld: Blood Wars. Kate Beckinsale has been playing the character of Selene since 2003. In other words, she's been making the Underworld movies for a long time. It's a shame most of them are terrible. Keeping with tradition, Underworld: Blood Wars lives up to the franchise's monstrously awful reputation. As usual, the plot is vampires fight werewolves and Selene wears a lot of leather. The directing is uninspired, the dialogue is stilted, and it may just be the bluest movie ever made. In other words, it's probably time to drive a stake through this franchise's heart and let Kate Beckinsale move on to bigger and better things. She's killed enough Lycans for one lifetime. The Mummy. Ever since Iron Man burst onto the screen in 2008, movie studios have desperately been trying to copy the Marvel model. Now, we've got the Dark Universe, an attempt by Universal to cash in on the interconnected movie franchise craze. But instead of relying on talking raccoons or thunder gods, the Dark Universe is reviving classic movie monsters like The Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and The Mummy. Unfortunately for Universal, they bungled their whole rebooted universe thing right out of the gate. The Mummy bombed at the domestic box office, and the film was savaged by critics. From the opening scene involving Iraqi insurgents to the undead mummy herself, few critics found anything positive to say about the film. Worst of all, The Mummy tried to set up a cinematic universe in just 2 hours, whereas the MCU unfolded over several movies. By trying to lay the framework for a future franchise in just one go, the story suffered. As a result, The Mummy hasn't done much to brighten up the future of Universal's Dark Universe. The Circle. With some movies, you can tell right away that they're going to be awful. But when some films bomb, it's a little more surprising. Take The Circle, for example. It's based on a novel by award-winning author Dave Eggers, and it features a who's who of big Hollywood names, including Emma Watson, John Boyega, and Tom Hanks. The plot centers on a creepy internet corporation known as The Circle, which wants to create a world where privacy is a thing of the past. Unfortunately, the film hits you right over the head with its message. As The Atlantic put it, it's all like an episode of Black Mirror, if Black Mirror made no effort whatsoever to be subtle. The Emoji Movie. You might think a movie featuring Patrick Stewart as a walking, talking piece of poop would at least be worth watching as a gag, but The Emoji Movie is such a soulless slog, it deprives you of even that simple pleasure.
You are smooth.
Just doing my duty.
It's a movie that's supposedly about being true to yourself, but really, it's just a big commercial for Spotify, Candy Crush, and Sony. A lot of people scoffed at the idea of this movie when it was first announced, and rightfully so. The film was obliterated by critics, even though it still turned a profit at the box office because kids are the worst.
Teddy's right here.
Birth of the Dragon. Making a movie about Bruce Lee should be the easiest thing in the world. He was a martial arts master with a rags-to-riches story, a truckload of charisma, and a tragic demise. It's the perfect recipe for an awesome biopic. But unfortunately, director George Nolfi ended up making the worst kung fu flick of 2017 with Birth of the Dragon.
You have offended my family, and you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
Dragon centers on the infamous 1964 showdown between Lee and Wong Jackman. Only, instead of focusing on either of these legendary figures, the movie spends way too much time following a white guy named Steve who trains with Lee, sympathizes with Wong, and wants to save his Chinese girlfriend from a crime boss. This isn't the movie anyone paid to see. Worse still, the film portrays Lee as an egocentric jerk who needs a good beating, which is a weird way to depict one of the most likable movie stars of all time. Daddy's Home 2. When the original Daddy's Home hit theaters in 2016, it scored a measly 31% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So why make a sequel, and why release it during the holidays? Simply put, because of the money. That's what Christmas is all about.
Oh, he's fired? But it's Christmas.
Thank you.
Daddy's Home 2 picks up with Brad and Dusty having become BFFs and excellent co-dads. But the status quo is torn apart when the grandpas show up. There's Brad's dad who keeps kissing his grown-up son on the lips, and then there's Dusty's old man, a womanizing jerk. With its painful holiday humor, Daddy's Home 2 is the kind of movie that might inspire a new generation of Grinches to swear off Christmas for good. The Shack. In 2007, author William P. Young published The Shack, a best-selling novel about grief, guilt, and God. 10 years later, it was turned into a movie starring Sam Worthington, Octavia Spencer, and Tim McGraw. And, spoiler alert, one of those actors literally plays God. Variety summed it up as a Hallmark card therapy session, which is putting it nicely. If you're looking for deep truths about religion, you're better off looking just about anywhere else.
So always look on the bright side of death.
Nope, you won't find any answers to life's big questions here, unless you wanted to know if God is a Neil Young fan. Second spoiler alert, yep. On the other hand, you will get to see Sam Worthington race Jesus across a lake, so there's that. The House. You can hire all the comedians you want, but if you don't have a solid script, then your movie won't get any laughs. That was the problem with The House. The latest from Andrew J. Cohen and Brendan O'Brien of Neighbours, and Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates fame. Although The House boasts the talents of Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler, instead of giving them a strong screenplay to work with,
Which we were kind of counting on.
it leans almost exclusively on their improv skills. The so-called comedy revolves around a pair of parents who open a casino in their friend's house to raise tuition money for their daughter. But things spin wildly out of control. Soon, the two become suburbanite mobsters, using drugs and chopping off fingers. While it seems like this wacky premise could lead to some good gags, most of the jokes failed to land with critics or those few audience members who bothered to watch. Bright. Theoretically, Bright sounds like it should be pretty awesome. A cop movie set in an alternate universe where orcs and humans live side by side? Yeah, it sounds goofy, but it sounds like the right kind of goofy. But while there's a rich mythology here to explore, the world of Bright feels incredibly two-dimensional. The action scenes lack any real spark, and while Joel Edgerton tries to salvage the film with the best performance he can muster under all that orc makeup, the script isn't doing him any favors. Plus, whenever Smith starts dropping lines like this,
fairy lives don't matter today.
it's probably time to press pause and revisit pretty much anything else on Netflix. All Eyez on Me. Tupac Shakur was one of the most influential artists of his generation, and he definitely deserved a better biopic than All Eyez on Me. The movie glosses heavily over the rapper's career, hitting the basic highlights instead of really digging into his life. As many critics have pointed out, the film plays more like a Wikipedia page than an actual movie. He is hoping that one day some future filmmaker will make a Tupac movie that delves a bit deeper into the artist's life. Flatliners. When the original Flatliners dropped into theaters back in 1990, it made a pretty penny at the box office, but still failed to impress many critics. Compared to 2017's pseudo-sequel though, the original feels like an absolute masterpiece of horror. The film follows a group of med students experimenting with life after life. Their tests involve taking some heavy-duty drugs, stopping their hearts for a minute or two, and checking out the other side before being resuscitated. Naturally, messing around with the afterlife has serious consequences, but when our heroes start experiencing some spooky visions, the film devolves into Jump Scare the Movie. Critics called out the film's lack of suspense, foolish characters, and lacking visuals, leading many to wish the property would have just stayed where it belonged, in the afterlife. Thanks for watching. Click the looper icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.